What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, we're looking at mid-priced forwards. So I've picked the 7.5 to 8.5 million bracket just because there's loads of options there and lots of people are looking at putting those price players into their squad. We'll probably cover cheap forwards and premium forwards in another video, but for this one, it's specifically 7.5 to 8.5 million. I'm going to go through a lot. I think it's the top 6 that I've got listed, and then there's going to be a few others to talk about at the end. So if you enjoy it, give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. Help us hit 200,000 subscribers on the channel, and let's jump into it. Okay, so for every player, and we're going to start with Dominic CalvertLewin, we've got their XG per 90, their expected assists per 90, and then the goals and assists. This is all for last season, right, including points per match. Calvert-Lewin had a really good season last year, and the thing that I really like about him is those XG per 90 numbers, 0.48. I think it was 0.49 the season before, so he has been quite consistent and has scored plenty of goals. He got 16 last year plus 6 assists. Some of those were including fantasy assists where they were a little bit dodgy, but we don't care, right? Points are points. And the fixtures are looking pretty good. They don't have... I'm using the FDR, the fixture difficulty rating colours from the actual Premier League. Now, I've put them into my own, what I think is really good and what I think is really bad, etc. But I've used the same colours. There's no kind of dark red, no pinks here. This is all pretty good fixtures, right? Even the ones that are grey, Southampton, Brighton and Villa. Are Villa going to have as good a season as they did last year? They did drop off quite a lot towards the end. Overall for last year, their defence wasn't that good. And I wouldn't really worry about playing Southampton either. Brighton is probably the most difficult. Again, Leeds, we're going to have to wait and see. There's a lot of love for Leeds defenders, and I may have one in my team. But ultimately last year, they were not too good. Neither were Burnley, and we're not expecting Norwich to be either. So I think out of everyone on this list, Dominic CalvertLewin has the best fixtures, and he has the numbers to back it up. He's not on penalties, which is a bit of a downside compared to some of the players on the list. And obviously, we do have a new manager, and for some teams, it's going to be difficult to predict exactly how they'll play. A lot of people are expecting Benitez to be very defensive, but Calvert-Lewin is still going to be that main man. Whatever formation they play, as long as he's the sole striker, we've already seen them trying to buy players that are going to put in crosses. He's obviously very good in the air as well. I don't see any reason why he can't continue. He's very young. He's had 2 very steady seasons in a row in terms of expected data. And last year, he put the goals in as well. He also had very good fixtures at the start. And I'm not saying you should just say, well, last year he did good in the first 6, therefore he'll do good again. But everything is telling me that the numbers are there, the fixtures are there, 5 points per match. He's decent. 8 million is the only downside because you can get quite a few 7.5s, but he's going to play. He's going to be absolutely nailed in that side. I really like him. So Bamford's an interesting one because he was brilliant last year, right? Absolutely brilliant. As many people still remind me to this day, I got it wrong with him. I avoided him at the start of the season. It took me a while to put him in my team, and he ended up, I think it was with 194 points. That was the second highest scoring forward last year. Now, if you go and look at YouTube drafts, like mine have never had Bamford in so far. You go and look at drafts on Twitter, very few of them have Bamford in. Now, one of the reasons for that is people are looking to go cheaper into the Leeds attack. So Rafinha is 1.5 million cheaper as 6.5. And there are a lot of forwards around the 7.5 and 8 million mark to choose from. So it's not that Bamford's a bad option. Who even cares about comparing him to Rafinha? If the fixtures were good enough, I'd definitely have both. It's just comparing him to other players within this price bracket and how good their fixtures are as well. Now, his numbers are really good, right? His XG per 90 is just under what Calvert-Lewin's was, but he's a little bit more creative. He still scored 17 goals, 5.1 points per match. He's on penalties as well, which I really like. Now, once he got given them, he didn't really get too many afterwards, but it's difficult to predict penalties. So who knows how many he'll get this season. And it sounds like he's basically on them until he misses. When he misses, he may get taken off, but let's hope that doesn't happen too soon. Biggest issue for me is just the fixtures, right? I know Leeds are super attacking. I've said this myself. They can go and score against anyone. But like anyone, you have tough fixtures. The odds are you're going to score less goals. So Man United away and Liverpool at home in the first 4 looks tricky. Burnley, Newcastle, great fixtures. I don't think Everton's that bad either, even though Benitez, like we said, defensive manager is going to improve them. How long is that going to take? I would back Leeds to score goals in that game. And then West Ham at home is not that much easier than Liverpool or Man United, etc. So the first 6 are pretty tricky. But after that, it's Watford, Southampton, Wolves and Norwich. So over the first 10, the fixtures are quite good. So it depends what kind of strategy and manager kind of tactics, etc. you want to employ. Like a lot of people will just pick a striker for the first 4 to 6 and then think about it after that, maybe even wildcard, and perhaps that's something that we can do. But if you want someone that you can hold for the longer term without having to worry, then I do quite like Leeds fixtures for the opening 10. It's just on a shorter term basis, they're not great. So I love Bamford. I do think Rafinha is better value, simply because there's so many options in that forward line. And I don't like the first 4, maybe to 6 fixtures. But after that, I'm liking Leeds. And I think if you've got someone like CalvertLewin, you could always swap to Bamford later on. Okay, Ollie Watkins. I'm not going to sit on the fence. I'm going to say it straight away. I think the first 3 fixtures are maybe affecting people's thoughts too much. Now, it's a difficult one because the fixtures are so good. When you get 2 promoted teams in your first 3 fixtures and the other one's good as well, Newcastle at home, that is a player we should look at. But after that, the fixtures get pretty tough pretty quickly. So after game week 3, they've got Chelsea away, Everton at home, Man United away, Spurs away, Wolves at home, Arsenal away, West Ham at home. Like, they're all fairly difficult fixtures, right? They're not like as difficult as playing Chelsea and Man City every week, but that is not a good fixture run. In fact, their fixtures only really get a bit better around game week 11. So I've already seen, like, I'm going to buy him 3 weeks, then I'm going to swap him, right? That's not a problem. The reason why I will probably, not definitely, probably avoid him is because you're almost booking in a transfer straight away. I don't want him for Chelsea away, Man United away, etc., right? As good as Aston Villa probably will be in attack, especially if Grealish stays, they're going to be difficult fixtures. And you're booking in a transfer. Now, I don't necessarily mind that, right? It's a good thing to plan an FPL. You bring in a player for a set amount of fixtures and you have a plan to move them on. But things happen so quickly at the start of the season, right? I've said this on other videos. There'll be things you're not prepared for. There'll be players that play really well that you weren't expecting. There'll be players that are awful, get injured. There'll be players that, play that we weren't expecting. There'll be different tactics, formations. Someone else will crop up. Some really cheap player who you've been thinking about gets a hat-trick early on. You know their price is going to go up quickly and you want to move to them, right? Those things happen. So it's all well and good saying, well, after game week 3, I'll just book in a transfer for Watkins. When you've got all that other stuff to consider, there's lots of knee-jerking at the start of the season, right? For the first kind of 4 to 6 weeks, that is when you're going to have the most active FPL managers in the game. And therefore, there's a lot of transfers made and prices do move quick, right? Last year, I made quite a few early transfers to combat it. And I did make some moves that were mistakes in the end, but those things happen. So if I've already booked in transfers as well, chances are you're going to have to start taking hits early on. Not necessarily a bad thing. It all depends on the individual circumstances, but it's something to consider, right? Watkins probably not going to be on penalties. I do think if Buendia is there and Grealish stays, like, the Villa attack is looking pretty damn good, because one of the things last year is obviously Grealish's numbers himself were so good in terms of creating chances. And I wouldn't say he had to do it all on his own, but a lot went through him. If Buendia can help with that as well, we know how good Watkins is at getting in the right positions. That is going to really help him. So I would back him for the first 3 weeks. I just think he's a transfer waiting to happen. And I don't think all the other strikers on this list have such bad fixtures that they should be avoided. So I think potentially going for someone like CalvertLewin instead, you can probably tell who I'm liking on this list already, with a good set of kind of 6 fixtures and also good underlying numbers, might be a better option to go for. But I would not begrudge anyone who wants to go for Watkins for the first 3 and just move him on. I just think you should be aware that a lot of stuff's going to happen in the first few weeks and there'll be a lot of transfers to be made. Okay, so if you've not followed my channel before, I'll tell you now, I have a love relationship with Mikel Antonio. There's no love-hate. It's all love for this guy when he's fit, right? That is one of the problems. We'll just talk about it straight away. He does have some fitness issues. We've seen his hamstring, etc., go quite a few times, and just various injuries, right, which then take him a little while to get back to full fitness, and that is something to worry about. So well and good me saying, like, Watkins is a transfer waiting to happen. Mikel Antonio could be as well, but his numbers are so good, right? And I feel like if you don't play FPL or you don't use stats and stuff like that, I feel like Mikel Antonio is probably quite, I would say, severely underrated as a striker, okay? Hasn't played there all his career, but he is so good at getting in the right positions, right? Movement, getting those quality of chances is a brilliant thing for a striker to do, and he does it. You look at his XG per 90, 0.52. I believe that's the highest of anyone we've talked about so far, yet his ownership's 11.3%, so it's fairly low. Now, he does have Leicester, which is tricky-ish, and Man United at home in the first 5, but outside of that, Newcastle, Palace, Southampton, Leeds, I do like those first 6 fixtures. Looking a little bit ahead on that, in game week 7, it's Brentford, so that's good. Everton away might not be too bad. Let's see how Benitez does. I mean, 8 game weeks away is a long way away right now. And then it gets a little bit trickier. So again, I'm not saying that any of these players are players that you have to keep throughout the whole season. And they're kind of priced at a point where you probably won't want to do that. We've had these players like Antonio, CalvertLewin before, a lot cheaper, like 6 million, 6.5, 7, whatever it might be. And you feel a bit easier about holding on to them. I think this year we might use a few more transfers on these players just to move around the players at the same price point. But I really like Antonio, okay? We don't know who's on penalties for West Ham. Okay, I think Rice took some last year. Lingard took some. At the end of the season, Antonio basically said he was on them, but he was I've seen the interview. He was kind of joking around how, look, they're all missing. I'm definitely on them now. Whether or not that's been decided, we don't know. Will West Ham bring in another striker? Possibly. They need one. You cannot rely on Antonio for the whole season. We know that. But they have the fixtures. His underlying numbers are brilliant. When he's fit, he's great. And if he gets penalties, look, I'm not going to start using words like essential because that's crazy. But when he's fit, he'll smash that 7.5 million price point, I think, if he's on penalties as well. So Newcastle away, Palace, Southampton, Leeds. I really like the look of them. Then it's Brentford in game week 7. Fixtures-wise, over the space of a good amount of time, not just the first 3 like Watkins. West Ham looking good. They were extremely good last year. I expect Moyes to push on as well. Antonio's the man, if he's fit. So Callum Wilson, in terms of kind of underlying numbers, so XG, expected assists per 90, is probably one of, I think he's got the lowest numbers of everyone on this list, right? But he's still a really good option, and he's on penalties as well. And I think Newcastle, especially towards the end of the season last year, started doing well. Whether Steve Bruce is going to employ a more attacking kind of strategy, who knows, right? We'll have to wait and see. But Wilson did really well last year, and when he plays, he tends to get points. Like, I'm just looking at his recent record. So if we go back to the 18-19 season, he got 14 goals, 12 assists, was brilliant that year. Next year, not quite as good, 8 goals, 6 assists, and then last year, he got 18 returns for Newcastle, right? So 18 returns, that's nearly one every other game. That's decent, okay? And he only played 2,000 minutes as well, which is ridiculous. So I really like him. I do think the fixtures are probably not as bad as they kind of look on there. I'm still not big on Villa defence like some people are. I know a lot of people are going for Martinez at the start. I'm not so sure about that. But West Ham, Man United are difficult. So it possibly is someone that we should look at after game week 5. So you've got Leeds, Watford, then it's Wolves, Spurs, Palace. So they're kind of mixed. Newcastle's fixtures. That would be probably the biggest issue for me. And again, he's 7.5 million. So it's not like we've got that really excellent, cheaper striker. I mean, obviously there's Tony, which we'll talk about in another video when we do cheaper strikers. But there's not really a huge amount of genuine options at that kind of price. So we are kind of looking at spending 7.5 plus on most of our spots. And I just think the guy we're about to talk about and Antonio possibly look like better options. And for the first 3, definitely Watkins. So Wilson's on my list because I do think he's a great option. I do think he'll do well last year. Like 18 returns in 2,000 minutes is decent. He's on penalties as well. I just think the fixtures for the start are a little bit mixed. I kind of want to see how Newcastle do as well. But when they get a good run of fixtures, definitely keep an eye on him. And like I said earlier on about switching these players at these price points, he's definitely one to monitor. I just think when you're putting in kind of 3 and maybe you're having Tony or a premium striker, so you've only got 2 spots, I think there's better options than Wilson. So Iheanacho was ridiculously good last year. He was so brilliant towards the end of the season. Like if you think about the amount of minutes that he played, getting 12 goals, like I'm just looking it up here, he played 1,400 minutes. So I've just said that Wilson was great for getting 12 goals, 6 assists in 2,000 minutes. He's only played 1,400 minutes. Now, this has always been the big issue with him, getting minutes, right? If I look at his underlying stats, and again, you don't have to use them. I quite like using them, and it's good comparison. So his overall expected goal involvement per 90 was 0.62 last season, 0.67 the season before, then 0.42, 0.59. That's a career average of 0.58. That's really good. That's basically getting enough chances, either creating them or getting into the right positions for basically a return every other game, which is decent, especially when you're only 7.5 million, right? Fixtures wise, looking at this for the start of this season, so Wolves. Again, I don't know what to make of Wolves because they've got a new manager. Are they going to be as defensively sound as they have been in kind of the previous few seasons in the Premier League under Nuno? Possibly not, right? The stats would say that should be a kind of pinky red fixture, but I've put it as a grey because I'm just not quite as sure it's going to be as bad as we think. West Ham, I think, is difficult. Man City is difficult. Brighton could be. So Burnley and Norwich are the only real green fixtures I would say there. That's the only issue, but obviously he himself is a great option and Leicester are a decent team as well. And after that, the fixtures are pretty good. There's some tough ones in there, Man United and Chelsea, like if I'm looking all the way down to like, I don't know, game week 16, but there's some really good fixtures in there. Now, I'm not saying you have to hold a player that long, but if he's nailed, he possibly could be a set and forget. He's not going to have penalties. That's obviously going to be Jamie Vardy. And we will have to see in pre-season what formation Brendan Rodgers goes for. They've also bought Daka as well. So I'm not quite sure what to make of the Leicester situation. On one hand, I know that Jamie Vardy is getting older. He's not going to be able to play at the top for too much longer. But last year, he didn't look massively at slowing down. Like, you go and look at his underlying stats compared to Iheanacho. They're very similar, right? And we know that Vardy has penalties. That's why he's like, what, 10.5 million or something crazy? And maybe Daka's coming because of that. Maybe he's coming because they want to play a two-striker formation and they need some backup. It's really hard to tell, but you need to monitor pre-season. If it looks like Iheanacho is first choice and going to start every game, obviously there could be minutes managed and stuff as well, then he looks like a brilliant option. I think I probably would think about holding him through these games. A lot of the players on this list are absolutely nailed. Bamford, Wilson, Antonio, unless they sign someone else, etc. CalvertLewin probably too. So with Iheanacho, you are taking a little bit of a risk. But the numbers are so good. When he gets game time, he scores goals. He's always done that. It's just that he hasn't been given that chance properly. And I would say that he possibly did enough last year for Brendan Rodgers to kind of say, well, we need to maybe just stick with this. But let's wait and see. What happens when Harvey Barnes is back? What happens in pre-season? But if he plays, he's brilliant. Maybe doesn't have quite as good opening fixtures as some of them, but longer term he's brilliant. And if he keeps playing, he'll score plenty of points. And like I said, could be a set and forget for a little while. Okay, so I've got all 6 of the players we talked about. I'm going to just talk about a few more in just a sec, a little bit quicker. But these are all of the players here. I've got their XG per 90, or sorry, their expected goal involvement per 90. I've listed them in order of how good they were last year. And obviously we've got their fixtures as well. So CalvertLewin is actually 4th on the list, right? So 0.55 is brilliant. But there's obviously so many good players around this kind of price point. So I'm looking at this, and I'd say the 2 that probably stand out, I mean, for the first 3, definitely Watkins, but we know the fixtures after that aren't fantastic. So for me, it's probably, right now, CalvertLewin and Antonio. With Iheanacho, you've got that West Ham, Wolves and Man City fixtures. We're not quite sure if he's absolutely nailed on. Again, if anyone said to me, he's got to be, look how he did last year, I'd probably say, yeah, you might be right. But let's wait to see what happens in pre-season. We know Antonio is going to be nailed, etc. Bamford I kind of like, but Man United and Liverpool would put me off. I think he's someone to possibly get in later on. And Callum Wilson, I just think Newcastle's fixture is a little bit too mixed for me. And numbers-wise, he is the lowest on the list, but he's also on penalties, so that does help. So on this list for penalty takers, we've got Wilson and Antonio possibly, and definitely Bamford, and the rest of them don't. But they're still putting out some incredible numbers. So for me, looking at that, it's probably CalvertLewin and Antonio if you need 2. If you need 3, if you're going for 3 around this price point, you're not going for Tony, you're not going for like Werner, Vardy, Kane, etc. It gets a little bit trickier. Maybe it is worth just going for Watkins for the first 3 fixtures and then reassessing what happens from there. Okay, so this was supposed to be 7.5 to 8.5, but I think realistically the best options are all 7.5 to 8. But just going to quickly talk about these 3. So don't completely write off Gabriel Jesus. I know people get frustrated with him. Sometimes he gets these really easy chances that he doesn't put away, but he always gets those chances, and he always will for Man City. Obviously, we know they're trying to buy Harry Kane, supposedly, and we'll have to wait and see if they go for someone else as well. But they've lost Aguero. Yes, they played with a false 9 for a lot of last season. Maybe Ferran Torres is going to play there this year, for example. But if we see Jesus getting game time, don't completely write him off. That's all I'm saying. With Cavani, and I realise I'm going right to left here, with Cavani, his numbers are brilliant. He's probably going to be, well, he will be the number 1 choice at Man United when he's fit, when he's available to play. But we saw last year, his minutes had to be managed. So the only thing I would say is at the start of the season, Man United's fixtures are pretty good. And because there's no Europe, he's not going to have to be rotated as much. It's like just a game every week pretty much for a little while. So if he's ready and available in pre-season, we're going to have to wait and see because of obviously all the international tournaments and stuff like that. He could be a nice little differential for the start. And not a differential for the sake of it. A genuine option that's good underlying numbers, still got an eye for goal, playing for an attacking team with good fixtures. I like him. It's just that extra 0.5 or that extra million. Could it be better spent elsewhere? And look, Jimenez, it's great to see him back in pre-season. He's been a brilliant striker in the past. Obviously, his numbers weren't great last year, but he didn't have time to then affect that to bring them up for the rest of the season. Probably is playing under a more attacking manager now. So if he's fit enough and can get the minutes, one to keep an eye on, but I think for the start of the season I would just ignore him. Also, Wolves fixtures are not that good to start, but they get pretty good after like 3 or 4 weeks. So I'm just quickly going to bring them up here if I can click in the right place. So Leicester, Spurs, Man United, not great. But if we see Jimenez playing, if he's getting 80 to 90 minutes and if he's looking sharp, they've then got Watford, Brentford, Southampton, Newcastle, Villa, Leeds, Everton, Palace, West Ham, Norwich, Burnley. The fixtures are just brilliant from game week 4 to 14. So if you're looking for your Watkins swap, right, and you want to go for someone that no one's really looking at too much, Jimenez might be the one, but not until game week 4. There we go. That is it for this one. Do let me know in the comments below who you are picking, right? If you're going for 2 or 3 of these players, maybe even just one, let me know who your top priorities are right now. As always, appreciate there's still stuff to see in pre-season, but a lot of these players, we know what they're about. We know they're going to be nailed. We know who's on penalties or not. We can start making some pretty good decisions. Give it a like if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button. Trying to get to 250k this season, but by game week 1, I'd love to get to 200,000. So hit that subscribe button if you've been enjoying my pre-season content and you want to watch a bit more throughout the season. And if you haven't already, make sure to check out Patreon. Everyone that's already supported for over a year is on the Patreon Legends wall, and if you sign up, I'll put you on the new recruits for the next video as well. There's a bit of extra content over there, team reveals, Slack access, loads of great stuff over there. So if you want to check it out, make sure that you do. Otherwise, I'll leave that video there. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you again tomorrow for another video.